Gary Neville joins us on set now. Gary, really good to speak to you, to react to this news reaching us this lunchtime. Are you surprised, first of all?
No, I'm not surprised. I thought that Gareth would call it a day. I think there were hints during the tournament when he was speaking that you felt like it might be the time. I think that when he used that phrase, unusual environment, and just obviously what happened on Sunday, I'm not sure it's based upon Sunday's result, but just the feeling after that game will mean that, I think, look, he's had an amazing time for 8 years and he's surpassed all expectations of every single England fan. And he deserved, I think, to call it a day on his terms, and he's done that. And I think, I don't disagree with the decision from a point of view that I think that the sentiment in this tournament you could just sense, and he knows England better than anybody. It was the right moment for him. He's done an outstanding job.
Do you think if the result had been different on Sunday, we'd be talking about a different statement today?
We'll be talking about a different statement. He might still be resigning, but I think it would obviously be with a completely different feeling around it. But no, I think he may have made up his mind a couple of weeks ago. I think that what Gareth's done in this last 8 years is achieved incredible things on the pitch, but he's also achieved incredible things off the pitch. Knowing how difficult it is to manage the politics of England, the media, the club versus country rivalries that have existed, he's removed a lot of those barriers. He's handled penalties better than anybody. He's reduced the fear. So he's done an incredible job, but it will have taken a toll on him. And there were just signs in this tournament that things were just starting to just flare a little bit, I think, behind the scenes, not because of any intelligence that I've got. You could just sense it, that maybe 8 years in, the time is right, and that I feel he's done a great job, and that's the most important thing. And it doesn't, usually you need to retire for people to call you a great man or a good person. People haven't been shy of saying that in the last 8 years, because he's genuinely somebody in a leadership position who's got integrity, he's got honesty, he's a fantastic person, and that's unusual in this day and age.
Yeah, and I mean, he's faced a lot of criticism. Do people almost need to be reminded of where England were 2016 when he came into this role and the job that he's done?
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously where he was because of the fact that I was part of the coaching team with Iceland, which was devastating, and then obviously Sam Allardyce got kicked out for what he did. And Gareth was at the time toying whether to take the job or not. He was deciding, you know, is it the right time? Am I the right person? But it was an unspectacular appointment in the eyes of many, but he is the Englishman with the most knowledge of international tournaments and international football out of anybody that's ever lived. And you saw De La Fuente, the Spain boss, on Sunday. He's had a similar trajectory to Gareth in terms of being with youth teams and younger teams with England. Gareth had that journey as well, but obviously played for England. And I think he's learnt a lot from the past, and I hope that, and I do know those learnings and that intelligence that he'll have gained will be left behind, because he won't have walked out with the crown jewels. He's not that type of person.
Let's talk a little bit more about the culture that he developed at England, because you know exactly what it's like to be part of an England setup. How special was it, what he did there and that relationship with the players?
Yeah, I mean, in Euro 96, I think there was a feeling that everyone was fully together and that there weren't any cliques and there weren't any club versus country rivalries. That then obviously shifted through the 2000s and my time, mainly. But Gareth did bring that team together. I talked about all those qualities before of sort of being a great person, a good man, but he also has been brutal at times in this last 7 or 8 years. And he's needed to be. And you think about the fact that, you know, maybe there were a time when England players had to play for Champions League clubs. That's completely gone. We had 4 players from Crystal Palace in the squad in this tournament. He's reduced the fear, the club versus country, the them and us that existed between the media, the broadcast media, maybe the journalists and the players. We always felt that as though we were punished by the media when we played for England, because there were times whereby there were lads that were made scapegoats at the end of tournaments. And he's taken all that away. He's been an absolute dream in the way in which he's handled the England team on and off the pitch. And that's through a lot of learnings that he's had during his playing career, the under-21, seeing how to do it and how not to do it. And he'll be a tough act to follow, because what he's done in this last 4 tournaments, getting to 2 finals, a semi-final and a final, I know people will say that, oh, we should have gone a step further. If we'd have said 8 years ago that Gareth Southgate was about to go and achieve this, you'd have said that it was insanity. And it would be a miracle. And I still say you should judge it upon what we thought at day one. And what he's achieved over this last 8 years is remarkable. He's given England fans an amazing time. And look, we couldn't get over the edge, but that's nothing to be ashamed of, because you're playing against fantastic players from different countries that have also got great ambition as well.
Yeah, and given everything that you've said there, the fact that he has received this criticism, do you think he actually deserves a lot more respect than he's been given?
He'll get the respect now, and he'll get the respect even more in the future when England don't qualify for tournaments and they get knocked out at group phases. We will be back there at some point in the future. I hope that we can win as well at some point, but he will get the respect because it's been England's most successful ever period, apart from that one title in obviously '66, which obviously we always remember. But in terms of a sustained amount of time, what England have done under Gareth Southgate has been outstanding. He's really consistent and reliable, and the players deserve credit for that as well. And it's hard work what he's done. You know, I've been to 12 tournaments following England as a broadcaster, a player and a coach. And certainly this has been the best period that I've seen in this last 8 years.
We're speaking to Rob Dorsett and Cavi Solical just a little while ago. Rob was talking a little bit about some signs that he had seen to do with the players and Gareth Southgate.
Yeah.
He mentioned an incident with Jude Bellingham,
Yeah.
perhaps looking to berate Southgate, talking a little bit about trying to get him to change his tactics, make substitutions. What was your take on all of that? Do you think that's actually quite normal in terms of a dynamic?
It's normal. I think for the first time, look, we don't know exactly what's happened behind the scenes, but I've been around England long enough to know that I think he was spinning plates more in this tournament than he had been in the past. I think in the past, I think everything was completely smooth. But I think there were signs in this tournament that players were getting caught in the weeds a little bit, and they were starting to take criticism in. They were starting to, I wouldn't say there were fractions in camp, because you can't get to a final if there's big fractions and it would come out. But there's definitely signs that things underneath. I was over there in Berlin for 5 weeks and you could just smell it. And Gareth, you could see it in his face. You could see it in the players' faces as well. That there were little things that were happening behind the scenes that weren't quite right this tournament, that had been right in the past. And that sounds crazy when you've got to a final. But I think he was maybe working very hard to keep a lid on some of the things that were happening. And maybe he felt as though that might have contributed also to feeling that the time was right for him to obviously call it a day. Not just the sense that obviously he's been through, much in this last 8 years.
And Southgate taking a lot of the criticism. Do you think the players need to take a bit of responsibility for perhaps not playing for the manager as well as they could have or should have done?
I mean, getting to a final, it feels a little bit sort of poacher term gamekeeper when I played for England in 8, and coached England in 8 tournaments and didn't get to a final once, to start criticising players or managers for their achievements in this tournament. I was frustrated at times, but so were the players, and so was Gareth himself, with the fact that he said quite regularly we could have been better on the ball. He said, the first question he gave after the final on Sunday was he wanted them to be better on the ball. And that's the big thing that I would say. I think he's done 99.9% of things absolutely amazingly well, but there is still this England default sort of methodology that when we have to seem to go, we need to go behind to take the handbrake off. It happened in other games during this tournament. And then when we get level or we go in front, we seem to sit back a little bit. And we certainly, to be fair, didn't handle the ball as well as I think Gareth would have wanted in this tournament, and the players would have wanted, and we would have wanted. And that was said through the whole tournament. I think that the players accepted that responsibility. They said it publicly to us in the media that, we should have passed the ball better, we should have done better on the ball. And that is a frustration we all feel, because we know those players are technically gifted. In the first 30 minutes of the final, there's no doubt they felt great nerves. They were tense. The ball was like a bouncy ball around them. Every time it came near them, it was popping up at each other. The weight of pass wasn't right. But again, you're playing in an elite environment against a top team, and Spain were the best team in the tournament, and they proved that in the final, and we were short. But to get there, to get over the line, in the past, England teams didn't get over the line. We didn't get to finals. We fell out, we fell out of second phase games and quarterfinals on penalties, or got defeated. When in the 95th minute Jude Bellingham scores a goal, we score penalty. We get penalties in the quarterfinal. We score a 92nd minute winner in the semi-final. Gareth did get over the line. It was just that final hurdle, which was the 2 finals against Italy and Spain. And they did keep the ball better than us. I do believe that's a determining factor in these big matches against the top teams. And that'll be the one thing that Gareth will look back upon. But there's no shame in that. And they shouldn't be sort of, if you like, this morning thinking, we didn't play well in this tournament. Yeah, they could have played better at times, but they did well to get to a final.
Yeah, and back-to-back finals as well, you have to remember.
Incredible.
Yeah, what will his legacy be then? How do you think he will rank amongst all-time England managers?
Behind Alf Ramsey. I mean, simply, right at the very top, apart from Sir Alf Ramsey, who wins a tournament. And if Gareth had won on Sunday, he'd have been right up there with him. And that'll be the one thing that will live with Gareth for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And It's what we all experience in sport. And, you know, the things that I remember, I still think about Iceland. I still think about Euro 96 in Germany in the semi-final. I still think about matches for England more than I do probably for matches for Manchester United, because with Manchester United we went on to win regularly Premier Leagues, or we won Champions Leagues, we won FA Cups, multiple FA Cups and Carabao Cups. But with England, we always fell short and well short, and sometimes it was a spectacular defeat when I was part of the England squad and team. And it was devastating. And those lads will be devastated on Sunday, but they were devastated losing in a final. His legacy, I think, will be that he's created one of the most successful periods in English football history. And most importantly, I know the players are developed by the clubs and the academies, and they should take great credit for that. But you only really, truly get the respect you deserve as a nation when those players come together at international football and start to get to semi-finals and finals. And I do believe in this last 8 years, English football players are respected a lot more around Europe and the world because of Gareth Southgate.
And attention, of course, now turns to a successor. I mean, you alluded to it earlier there, kind of good luck to whoever takes over, because is it a bit of a case of be careful what you wish for? Because at the end of the day, they're going to have to come in and win a trophy.
Yeah, they will have to surpass what Gareth's achieved. And look, over the years, we've had every different type of manager, the fashionable international manager, the best English managers. We've had Gareth, who's been through the ranks with obviously younger teams, who's maybe not had the fashionable career at club football that maybe some have had. You saw the Spanish manager on Sunday, who again has had a different trajectory than most managers in football that manage at the very top level. There's no science really behind it in terms of what works at international football, because I think all things have worked. Where England go next, I don't know. There are some obvious contenders. I think Graham Potter will get mentioned and Eddie Howe will get mentioned. I think it will definitely be an English manager. I think when you think about St George's Park and the move there a few years ago, which was to promote and encourage and develop English coaching, I do believe the FA will think properly about that, and the fact that to actually appoint an international manager would be wrong, that we need to develop English coaches, because it's very difficult for English coaches to get jobs at top Premier League clubs. So to actually then take that job away from an English person and give it to an international manager doesn't seem right. So I think we will be talking about Graham Potter, Eddie Howe and candidates like that.
Do you have a preference now?
No, I mean both are good coaches, both are good managers, and I think it's more about sort of, if you like, how they pick up the baton from Gareth, get those players ready for the next tournament, which is going to be tough, you know, travelling all around America and other parts of South America and North America, will be a tough tournament. Heat, travel, that will exhaust the players more. So look, there'll be a team still in place that Gareth will have left. Maybe the top 2 or 3, you know, him and Steve Holland and maybe some, you know, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank may leave. But they'll be coming into a settled environment where people have been very successful over the last 8 years. And I say successful because there'll be people there at home saying, yeah, but you didn't win anything. Yeah, but, you know, you've got to be a top nation to win things. We are a top nation, we believe, but we haven't won anything for a long, long time, and we nearly got there. And I do think success is getting to finals and quarterfinals and semi-finals regularly in international football. That is success.
You mentioned probably an English manager. What about managers that have spent a lot of time in England? You know, a lot of people talking about Jurgen, Klopp. What about someone like that being put in the frame?
I mean, you can't dismiss Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola, the most sensational managers that we've had in the Premier League in the last 10 to 12 years. But there's just something inside me. I think when we went through that Sven-Göran Eriksson and Fabio Capello era, who were top managers, coming into the England national team, if we don't develop our own players in our own league, and we don't develop our own coaches, and we don't develop our own managers at international level, you know, English coaching has still got a long way to go, a long, long way to go to catch up to the other great nations in the world. And I think we have to work hard on developing English coaches, and that means putting them in the toughest environments, in the biggest matches, as often as we possibly can. And I do believe we should stay with English coach. I played in a Manchester United dressing room that thrived under fantastic international players, wonderful players from all around the world. And I love the idea of living in a city that has people in it from all around the world, young people in, you know, we've got 40,000 students in Manchester that come from all around the world. I love it. But I think with English coaching, we've taken such a battering over this last 20, 30 years that we do need to focus hard on it and believe in our own and give them an opportunity.
And what about Gareth Southgate himself then? You obviously know him really well. What do you think is next for him?
I'd like to think that Gareth would stay at international level. I think it really suits him. His patience, his understanding of international football is second to none. And I think about the fact that he could go in at a club. Of course he could go in at a club. But I just feel that, for me, international football is where Gareth belongs. He's a statesman-like leader who I think represents countries really well. And that obviously won't be his own country. He's such a proud Englishman. I remember Gareth Southgate when he played for England, and he has that sort of like look of him of someone who isn't the sort of bulldog type that fights for his country. You know, you think of Terry Butcher and Stuart Pearce when you think of those types of characters, but he is that in a different shell. He absolutely loves his country, but I think he actually suits international football, and his manner suits international football. So I'd like to think that he would go and get a job in international football where he could develop what he's developed already with England and take those learnings, the intelligence he's got, into a different job.
And Cavi sat here and said he will be Sir Gareth Southgate soon enough, and that actually he might end up coming back to England in the future. Is that something that you could see happen?
Maybe. I mean, I wondered at one point, you know, not necessarily in this tournament, whether Gareth should actually take a higher role at the FA and influence the direction. Because, like you say, we need people who have experienced and lived international football to be there in the FA. I think the FA has improved quite a lot, actually, in the last few years. It used to take a right battering, the FA, and deservedly so at times over the last 20, 30 years. But I think it's improved a lot. I think it's got a lot more modern. I think the structures are a lot more modern. I think that Gareth Southgate would be perfect, I think, to take a higher role in the FA, to stay within the game in England, to develop it and develop English coaches, because he absolutely loves his country. I don't know what the question was that you asked me, but I'm riffing here anyway.
Well, Gary, honestly, it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us and your insight. Thank you so much.